journalists who asked a question just now, or television reporters do not really discuss these, because these will not make news. But the senior volunteers and Imperial members of Japan are working for quite a few people around the world, and I know that reality. And therefore, I very much hope that people will turn their eyes to the outside world and act. In my speech, I did touch on this, and that's about ODA. ODA is an extremely important foundation for Japanese diplomacy. And ODA is not merely providing equipment and technology to developing countries, but through the provision of technology and assistance, I think it is an important opportunity for us to communicate Japan's values to those countries as well. One example, there's New Delhi in India, and there's an underground or subway in New Delhi that has been built with Japanese ODA. And when I was foreign minister, I went to take a look at this underground. At the entrance of the station, there's a huge signboard saying clearly that this underground wasn't built by Japanese ODA. They don't do things that will blur this completely. Like they do in certain other countries. It clearly says the underground was built with Japanese ODA. And you get on the escalator to go down, and just before the wickets, there's a huge painting. And 75% or three-quarters of the board is painted green, and it says Japan. And so it's a picture of Japan, so that people who can't read can also understand this was built by Japan. And one of the top leaders, president of, or a top engineer, was there, so I thanked him for that. And this gentleman says, allow me to say a word. So I said, please, go ahead. And he said, do you know what we call this underground? And I said, I don't know. And I said, we call this best ambassador. And I asked why. And the gentleman says, I was the leader of the people working on the ground in building the underground. And when there was the first underground briefing, and I was told to come at 8 a.m. So I went there a couple of minutes before 8 a.m. And the representatives of the Japanese construction company were all there with the helmets on, in their working uniforms, working attire, and they're all lined up neatly. Before we lined up, we finished lining up. I think it took about 13, 14 minutes. And I said we're all in line now. And the gentleman in charge, the Japanese gentleman in charge said, we said we'll start work at 8 a.m. And when I say that, we start our work at a.m. Do you intend to work in your suit? So next morning, I went there at 7:45. And almost everyone was already finished changing. So the next day, he went at 7:30, and he found that these Japanese people were in the process of changing their clothes. And during the entire process, until the completion of the work, there was one Japanese word we learned, and he said it's a delivery date. Delivery date. Anyone who is in manufacturing knows this word, delivery date. By this and that date of this month, the products should be completed and delivered. Perhaps at that time, there weren't people who could speak English, so they taught this Japanese word noki, delivery date. And they said, by this delivery date, you should complete this work. Yesterday, you promised that you will do this work by today, right? You entered into contract, and haven't you got pride in your work? To work is what you've got to be proud about. So these Japanese repeated the word Noki, Noki, delivery date, completion date. I had done many work like building dams and so on, but this is the first time that we completed the work 2.5 months ahead of the completion date. We often completed 2 months late, but this is the first time we finished 2.5 months ahead of the scheduled completion date. And so these people also learned the philosophy of working and the pride to work. And so the Japanese are spreading this pride throughout the country, he said. In public transit systems, this underground is the only system that works on time. All others work 1 day late or 5 hours late, and people will not be surprised. But this underground will not be late by more than 2 minutes. Well, in Japan, if the subway is late by 2 minutes or so, this will be a serious problem. And this engineer said, I agree. I went to Japan and I found it out. These are the good points about Japan. But people don't realize, or people don't notice this. There's an endless list of these. And Japan, overseas volunteers, and others are doing their work, and so ODA is very important, but connected with ODA, there will be a lot of ramifications that will spread, and I think it is a Japanese culture that can be transmitted through ODA. And I believe that is, in response to a question by Mr. Ina, this is what I would say. We should have more self-confidence in the good things that we have, the virtues that we can impart. And one last point, and this is something I never realized until I was told. This is a place called the Hoshino Spa in Karuizawa, up in the mountains. That's a hot spring, Hoshino hot spring. And I heard from the gentleman who runs this hot spring. There's a lot of lava in that area, and foreigners visit that area. Quite a few foreigners visit that area. And I was asked, do you know where these people take pictures? And I said, probably Onioshidashi, in front of the lava in Onioshidashi. And his answer was, you're totally wrong. Most foreigners find a single vending machine in the middle of a lava in Onioshidashi. And this runs 24/7, 365 days outdoors. But it runs if you put coins in. Sure, it should run. And his answer was, but it means that there's a lot of money in the machine. And yet people don't break it and take money. Why? Why not? Well, of course, if you break it, it will be a crime. Well, it's a crime, not just in Japan, but in the U.S. or any other countries. If you destroy, if you break public goods intentionally, it'll be a crime. But there are people who do that, who commit that sort of crime, which means that security, public safety is extremely good in this country. Foreigners realize that. Now, you come to Tokyo, and there are hundreds of vending machines on street corners in Tokyo, and they all work. You put coins in, and they all work. And foreigners are flabbergasted that there's no such country around the world. And so this is what I learned from the gentleman who runs the hot spring. There are numerous other examples. But what we take for granted is not taken for granted in other countries. I believe well, from my experience of having lived overseas, I don't think there's been any single vending machine that works, that stands in the same corner 24 hours a day, 345 days a year. So it's something that we really do not realize or care about much, but that it perhaps symbolizes the foundation of Japanese ethics. Thank you very much.